Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new video. I'm delighted to be joined by Jane Lewis, a sports reporter for the BBC, and she's worked at Sky Sports, etc, etc. It's so lovely to have you on the channel, Jane.
Well, it's lovely to be here, Darren, and a great privilege to be asked, so thank you very much.
No, not a problem. So the first question is probably quite easy. What were you like growing up?
Oh, what was I like growing up? I was a bit of a tomboy. It might not surprise you to learn. I had two older brothers, so I think I was always trying to play catch up with them. So you'd find me climbing a tree rather than playing with Barbie dolls or anything like that. So yeah, I was a bit of a tomboy. I was really into sport. I used to play every sport going, especially as I got older in school as well. I'd like to say that I was never cheeky, always polite and well-mannered, but that's probably not true. But yeah, just a typical young girl growing up in Scotland, although I have to say my dad moved around a lot of foreign countries when I was growing up. So when I was 6, I lived in Mexico, which was a brilliant experience. Went to school with someone who's now a very famous football manager. I'll let you think about that for a couple of minutes. And I also lived in Egypt and Canada as well. So I had quite a different upbringing, I suppose, from that point of view, and very privileged to get to experience living in lots of different countries that were so different from living in Scotland. So yeah, it was that was brilliant. I loved every aspect of that.
What got you into reporting like football and just sports in general?
Yeah, as I said to you there, Darren, I was always really, really sporty. When I was at school, I played loads of sport, every sport going, hockey, lacrosse, athletics, I would swim, just everything, tennis, badminton, just whatever it may be. I was just really, really sporty. When I stopped school, kind of all that stopped. When you go on to study a degree, you find other pastimes, and sport just wasn't in the kind of reckoning. But I still really enjoyed watching it on television. I still really loved reading about it and learning about it, and I suppose gaining more knowledge about it. So from there, I was involved in hospital radio as a volunteer, and the two just kind of merged together. My kind of real love for broadcasting and my love for sport just kind of came together. It seemed quite natural, if you like, and that's what got me interested in thinking maybe I could have a go at being a sports reporter. And obviously when you watch television and you read lots of papers and books on it, then you know that is a potential career. So I did a degree in broadcast journalism, and that got me on the road to becoming a reporter. And I always kind of thought that it would be sport that I would aspire to go down that road. And lucky enough, I've done that.
What was it like being on the radio?
I love being on the radio. Radio was my first love. When I got off my first job after my degree, I worked for a couple of BBC local radio stations where you had to do everything. It was a very small team, so you were maybe reading the sports news, you were editing the sports news, you were going out interviewing, you were phone bashing, you were doing every aspect of the job, which was important. It gave you a really, really good grounding and understanding of all the different roles that go into make a radio programme, if you like. Radio for me is brilliant. It's immediate. There's no faffing around with a camera or, checking your kind of focus. So when you're trying to take pictures or even working with a camera operator, you can be a one-person band, if you like. And I just think, although we live in this age of digital technology where it is massive and booming, radio is still really important to a lot of people, and people really engage with that kind of medium, and I love that thought. I mean, I present Sportszone on a Sunday on Radio Scotland, and it's just brilliant because it's live sport. Anything can and does happen, and you get to interact with your guests, but more importantly, you get to interact with people who are listening to you. And I love that idea. I love the idea of me communicating with people. It's just a lovely, lovely feeling, and I love radio.
What inspires you?
What inspires me? I think I'm just inspired just to try and get better and improve. You know, as I said to you when we were chatting before, that I've been involved in this business for over 20 years. But you can still get better, you can still improve, you can still learn from people. So I listen to a lot of radio and I watch a lot of television where I'm watching people and learning from them. So I suppose that inspires me, is just to carry on what I'm doing, but also to carry on and try and get better. You know, the day you think that that's it, you've done enough and you can't get any better, is the day that you pack it in. I believe that, you know, everyone can get better, and I certainly can.
What's the best thing about being a sports reporter?
Oh, the best thing. I mean, I suppose it's obvious, isn't it? You get to, and especially in the COVID times as well, you know, I feel really lucky and really privileged that, you know, for the last, since the season started, every Saturday and some Sundays, I've been getting to go to football matches. So, I mean, that is a real, you know, you feel really honoured being able to do that, and really special, because, you know, fans like yourself are locked out the games at the minute, you know, for obvious reasons. So the fact that you can get to go to games and see some brilliant games, the fact that you can get to go to the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, and that you can get to interview some world-class athletes, footballers, swimmers, whatever it may be. It's just, the whole package is great. You know, listen, it's hard work at times, of course it is, but they are definitely the perks. You know, I was lucky enough to go to the Gold Coast in Australia to cover the Commonwealth Games, of which Scotland obviously were part of. And that was just amazing, because you were going to Australia, for one, you're going to a beautiful part of Australia, the Gold Coast was stunning, and you were getting to watch world-class sport. You know, and of course you were working hard, as I say, because you were interviewing people, you were putting television packages together. It wasn't a holiday by any stretch of the imagination. You were working long hours, but it was great, because you were doing a job you loved, and you also felt special, because you know that not everyone was lucky enough to experience such a massive sporting event, I guess. So I suppose for me, being a sports reporter, that's a massive perk of the job. Going to massive sporting events and being lucky enough to interview some pretty impressive people as well, I have to say.
Did you always want to be a sports reporter?
I have to be honest and say, no, I didn't. I was quite late to that kind of idea as a career. I always thought I wanted to be a primary school teacher, believe it or not. And I tell you this, Darren, see, during this homeschooling, I know that I would have been a terrible primary school teacher, because I've got 2 children, and homeschooling, not for me. But anyway, I always thought I wanted to be a primary school teacher, and that's what I did my degree in, education and environmental studies. And when I was doing work experience in schools, I thought, this just I didn't love it. And, you know, you've got to love what you're doing. I didn't mind it, but I didn't love it. And at the same time, I explained to you there that earlier I was doing some hospital radio, and I loved that. And I thought, you know, that is probably the career I should maybe try and get into, some kind of form of broadcasting. So no, I didn't always want to be a sports reporter. I thought I wanted to be a primary school teacher. Quickly figured out I didn't actually want to be a primary school teacher, but was lucky enough to have other interests that I could use to farm out a future career for myself.
What is it like being on Sportszone sometimes?
Yeah. I mean, I do every Sunday Sportszone now. I was given that job at the start of this season, which was amazing. You know, it sounds really corny and cheesy to say that, you know, it was a dream come true, but it was a dream come true. And for me, it was real career development. You know, I spoke to you earlier about always trying to get better and improve yourself. And you know, you're only allowed to do that when you're given more opportunities, and that, you know, being given the opportunity to present Sportszone, which at times can be 5, maybe even 6 hours long, you know, of live sport. whether it's a football match, whether it's lots of other sporting guests that we have into the studio to talk about a variety of sporting issues that might have been happening that week. It's just great that mix, being, as I said to you, being engaged with the people who you're on with, all our pundits, obviously that kind of feeling of engaging with the audience as well. I just love it. And obviously, Sportszone and football, have gone hand in hand for years, and it's a real privilege for me to be involved in that team now. Hardworking producers, brilliant producers. The pundits that I get to work with as well are brilliant. Household names that you sometimes have to pinch yourself that you're talking and you're having a laugh with Willie Miller or Billy Dodds, and it's just great. The guys are good to me, and I feel like I'm learning all the time. That thing again about trying to get better and improve. And yeah, I just love it. It's certainly it was as I say, a kind of development in my career, and I was really, really grateful for that opportunity. Still am grateful for that opportunity.
What football team do you support?
Oh, Darren, you're trying to get me in trouble here, aren't you? Listen, I have to say it's probably well documented that I'm a bit of a Motherwell fan. I was born in Motherwell, just round the corner from the football stadium, actually, and a lot of my family support Motherwell. And although I was living abroad and living down in England, certainly when I first really started to get into football, that just kind of seemed the natural pull for me. So yeah, I would say I was a Motherwell fan. I can't claim to have been supporting them ever since I was born or anything like that. But yeah, they're the team that I've got a little soft spot for, I have to say. But I have to say, when I cover them, whether it's for Sportszone or if we get to the Scottish Cup, whatever, I'm very, very impartial. I can be professional and don't bum them up if they don't deserve it.
Who do you look up to?
I look up to a lot of people. I think when I was first starting out and I was first considering this as a career, people like Helen Rawlinson, you might not know her. She sadly is no longer with us. She very sadly died of cancer, actually, when she was really, really young. But she was a real kind of forging light in broadcasting, and certainly as a female, she was a real kind of a glass ceiling breaker, I suppose you might say. She used to present Grandstand and Newsround. That was our kind of first kind of TV job, I would think I'm right in saying. But for me, as someone who was thinking, I'd quite like to be a sports broadcaster, and I would watch her on the telly, and I would think, yeah, she's doing it, so why can't I do it? And she was brilliant, really professional. So she was probably one of my first role models, as was Hazel Irving. Obviously, a good Scottish broadcaster who's been absolutely brilliant as well. She obviously has done massive things for BBC Sport, for other organisations too. But these two, if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be doing this job, because we all need role models and people that inspire you and instill that kind of confidence in you, and they kind of. When I was watching them, that message from them subliminally was, it's possible, you can do it. So those two were certainly pretty high up on my list. But, I've got lots of role models. I mean, I love people like Des Lynam. Again, maybe you're too young to remember him, Darren, but he was just this natural sports broadcaster who was utterly brilliant. So there's probably not just one person, but just a whole array of people who make the job look really, really easy, and who, when I watched them, encouraged me to think, that looks great, and all down to hard work, of course, on their behalf, but they made it look just terribly easy and really engaging, and I loved watching them, and still obviously love watching Hazel, and been lucky enough to meet her as well on loads of occasions. When I moved up to Scotland, she was still here, and she's just brilliant. The advice she gives you, and would never pass you in the street. She's a lovely, lovely, lovely lady, and very, very good at her job as well.
Who were your footballing idols?
Footballing idols. Well, when I first started to get into football, I was quite old. I was probably maybe about 16 when I first started to get into football. I didn't really play it when I was at school. That really wasn't an issue. I used to kick the ball around in the back garden with my brothers, but I think because we lived abroad and moved away in different countries, I didn't really follow Scotland, for example. I didn't really have a football team when I was growing up. But when I moved to England and I really started to get really keen on watching football and reading about it, and obviously it was the good old days when Grandstand was on a Sunday afternoon and they would always have a live football match. I loved watching Liverpool, so I loved people like John Barnes. He was probably one of my kind of footballing idols. I just thought he was brilliant. Looked so easy on the ball. Was a brilliant player. Who else? People like Darren Anderton, who used to play for Spurs. I thought he was fantastic as well. Bruce Grobbelaar, who was that flamboyant goalkeeper. Real characters of the game. I probably didn't. They probably weren't kind of idols like they would be if you were playing football and you wanted to emulate them on the pitch. But I loved watching them because they were entertainers and because they were, I just love watching them on the ball because they were so skillful.
First football in memory.
My first footballing memory was, I remember, I've already explained to you that I lived in Mexico when I was 6 years old. When I came back to Scotland, and I went back to my primary school, there was an opportunity for the class to go and see a football match. Now it was an indoor football match. It wasn't a kind of 11-a-side outdoor. And I can't even remember where it was being played. And the two teams that were involved were Scotland against Mexico. And I thought this was quite poignant for me because obviously I'd just come back from Mexico and all my pals were going, "Oh, Jane, it's okay. You can support Mexico if you like. Don't worry about it. We won't stop talking to you," or anything like that. And as a whole class, we went along to watch this indoor. I think it was 6-a-side football. I can't even remember any of the names who were playing, because it was that long ago. But of course, I wasn't going to support Mexico. By the way, I was Scotland all the way. But yeah, it was great. I don't remember much about the game itself, but I just remember being there and the buzz that it gave you, and we just all got into it, and it was so that would be my kind of first footballing memory.
Can you remember your first day on the radio?
My first day. Oh, well, when I was doing my degree in broadcast journalism, we were lucky enough to go on work experience. And one of the radio stations I went to was BBC Essex down in the south of England, southeast of England, I think it is, just kind of outside London. And I had, it was absolutely brilliant because I was obviously just a kind of student, if you like, but they threw me right into all the big stories they were covering, because that's what local radio is all about. I was talking to you before about, it's all hands on deck. And so they threw me into covering some pretty big stories. So I would have been on the radio in terms of, you hear these kind of what we call voicers. I didn't read any news bulletins, but my voice would be on the radio, giving a report on whatever it was. So that would have been the first time. And but first time live being on the radio, I don't really remember the very first day, but I remember my first day on Sportszone, because it was only a few months back, and it's such a big show to be involved in. And you're nervous, you're excited, even though you're experienced, you're kind of thinking, "Oh, I hope this works out okay." But yeah, I don't remember my very, very first day, because I'm really old, Darren. I can't remember back 20 years.
Nothing. Who's helped you the most?
A bit like, the people you look up to. I'm not sure there's just one person. Every job I've been to, there's usually been one person, whether it's a boss, whether it's someone, maybe even a colleague who's maybe just been a few years more experienced than you, who's always had a couple of really sound pieces of advice of what to do or what not to do. So I've been really lucky from that point of view. And I've worked in some loads of different places. My first job was at Radio Berkshire, again down in London, or just outside London in Reading. And the head of news down there was a guy called Phil Coop. And he was great. He would just give me little bits of advice here and there. And he was quite gentle. He wouldn't kind of shout and scream at you. Whereas, other people who I worked with, when I went to Sky News at first, my first television job, the head of news was a chap called Andy Cairns. The head of Sky News Sport was a guy called Andy Cairns, who later went on to brilliant things on Sky Sports News. And he was a bit of a shouter, but for good reason. He would take you through your television reports and he would rip them apart. But again, for good reason. You were learning from that. And then again, when I came up to STV, Paul McKinney was the head of news. He was really good with me. People like John Mackay and Shireen Nanjiani, I'm sure you've heard of them, who John still works obviously in STV. He'd been working there for a few years when I fetched up, and he would give me sound advice, and still does actually to this day. John and I are still friendly, and he will give me advice. And at BBC Scotland as well, there's loads of people. Tom Connor is the head of sport, and he's been really, really good to me and shown a lot of faith in me as well. And yeah, they're just everywhere where I've been, there have been people who have just, whether it's just give me little words of wisdom, or as I say, whether it's actually going through your work and saying, this is not right, you should be doing this, or have you thought about doing that? I've been really lucky that way, really, really lucky.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
Retired on a beach. I'm kidding. No, 5 years is, I was going to say it's an awful long time, but time tends to fly past so quickly, doesn't it? Listen, I don't know. I hope that I'm still doing what I'm doing. I hope that I'm still presenting Sportszone on Sundays. I don't know if I will be. I hope I'm still involved in the Scottish Cup. I hope I'm just doing what I'm doing, and I think more importantly, I hope I'm still learning. I hope I'm still improving, and I hope I'm still loving every single minute of it, because that's really important. And I'm sure I will be, because the brilliant thing about sport is that you're covering different things all the time. It might be the Scottish Cup final you're covering, but it's going to be different teams that are in it usually. So it's a different experience, isn't it? So yeah, I just hope that I'm carrying on doing what I'm doing. Only I'm getting more experienced at it, getting better at it, but still enjoying it.
What was it like being on Setanta Sport?
Yeah, I didn't really do an awful lot of work for Setanta Sports. I did when I first went freelance after I left STV. I'd been at STV for 7 years, and I decided it was time to test the waters and see what else was out there. I did a couple of shifts for Setanta. They were involved in Club TV, and I presented one of their channels for maybe about 2 or 3 months, just as cover for someone who was off actually. And Setanta obviously. They had a lot of critics because maybe they didn't do things maybe as they should have done, and obviously they folded, and a lot of people were left out of work, etc. But there were a lot of really, really good people at Setanta who are now working, in broadcasting all over the place, whether in Scotland or over the world. And they had the right ideas, and I think especially in Scotland they had. They wanted to do things the right way, and unfortunately, probably their bosses just didn't kind of do things the right way, and obviously that the channel ended up where it ended up. But it spawned a lot of good people who probably got a lot of experience. I include myself. I got quite a lot of presenting experience from them, although I wasn't there for an awful long time.
What do you do in your spare time?
I do loads. I like going to the gym. I'm still quite sporty. I've kind of refound a love for trying to keep fit, and I've got 2 young children that I need to kind of run after as well. So a lot of time is taken up with them, running them to their various clubs, picking them up from school when I'm not at work, that sort of thing. So yeah, I like to keep active, and obviously with my family as well, I like to do things with them too.
Favourite football game you've watched?
Favourite football team or game? Game. Oh, crikey. Listen, I've been really lucky. As I said to you earlier, that's one of the perks of the job, that you get to see some brilliant sporting events. And I suppose 2 kind of spring to mind, although I'm sure there's loads more. But I was lucky enough to be at the Champions League final between Real Madrid and Bayer Leverkusen, I think in 2002. And that was amazing. It was in Glasgow, it was at Hampden, and that's why I was there. But obviously, Real Madrid, all their history and the players they had in their team at the time as well. And Zidane scoring that amazing goal, which, I'll never forget as long as I live. And it was just a brilliant experience to be at that massive sporting event being held in Glasgow. The crowd were great. It was a brilliant atmosphere. And yeah, the special goal, I think, kind of made it. The other one, I think, for me, quite recently when Scotland played England and Lee Griffiths scored those 2 amazing free kicks. Obviously, Harry Kane broke her heart at the end. But just to be there, and I was sitting next to Jonathan Sutherland at the time, who I know that you've spoken to on this channel, and it was just when those free kicks went in, they were both brilliantly taken, sublime free kicks, and we thought, my God, we're going to beat England, and we were jumping up and down, highly unprofessional, but because you're covering Scotland, I think you can get away with that. And that was brilliant. The atmosphere, Hampden was absolutely jumping. I mean, the atmosphere in Hampden, people complain, say that Hampden is a lack of atmosphere, it's not a good football stadium. I mean, that day was absolutely rocking. It was brilliant. And just to see Scotland play so well against, a class team of England's quality was amazing. But yeah, of course, then typical Scotland, they have to break your heart at some stage in a game, don't they?
What's it like covering the Scottish Cup on TV?
Yeah, I mean, again, to come out with a cheesy line, that really is a kind of dream come true for me. I had a long held ambition to try and get involved in presenting of live football. And when I was asked to get involved in the Scottish Cup, I was absolutely chuffed to bits. Really, really was. As I say, it was a long held ambition, and it's finally coming true, which is brilliant for me. Obviously, on a personal note. Again, it's something that I've only done a couple of games, because obviously the Scottish Cup was stopped for obvious reasons, but it's coming back now, which is fantastic for BBC Scotland, because we've got the live rights to that, and from a personal point of view, I get to be involved in it again. But I just love the Scottish Cup. I think it's great. The early rounds are amazing. You get to go to grounds that you've never been to before. You get to cover teams that you've probably. I mean, I covered the first game I covered was just after Christmas, and it was Dundonald Bluebell against Queen's Park. Now, I'll admit, I had never even heard of Dundonald Bluebell. So, getting to cover them was great. You do your research beforehand and you find out some interesting facts about the club, and it's brilliant. You're educating yourself as well. The cup is just great. The romance of the cup for me is what it's all about, and I've been lucky enough to be involved in it as a reporter and now as a presenter as well. And long may it continue. I'm so glad the Scottish Cup is coming back. I think we've got a few ties to come in the third round, which hopefully I'll be involved in, and I can't wait.
What's your favourite career moment been so far?
My favourite what? So say again, Darren.
Your favourite career moment.
My favourite career moment. Oh man, it's really hard, Darren, because and I keep on kind of repeating myself a little bit here, but you're so privileged that you get to cover so many amazing sports and so many amazing events. When I was at STV, I was lucky enough to go to Seville and cover Celtic against Porto in the what is now the Europa League final. It was the UEFA Cup back in those days. And that was amazing. That was probably my first real big sports news story, because the whole country went mad for that, especially working for STV, and the kind of Central Belt was our audience. So that was amazing. But I have to say as well, being at the Olympic Games in Rio, I had never been to Brazil, didn't think I would ever get to go to Brazil, and what an amazing place. And the Olympics was amazing to be involved in it, from start to finish, turning up in a country that you didn't really know anything about in terms of, your preconceptions and what have you, but getting to experience some of the country. And then again, just, getting to, interview people like Usain Bolt when they come through the mix zone, after they've won a medal in the 100 meters, just things like that. Just they're kind of quite pinch yourself moments. You really have to remind yourself how lucky you are, and I do that because I know how lucky I am. So being at the Olympics, maybe just shades everything I've done, but as I say, I've done so much. 2 Commonwealth Games as well. It's really hard to pick out just one of those events, but the Olympics is pretty special if you're a massive sports fan, which I am. So getting to cover that and getting to kind of see the Scots who were involved in Team GB, it was just brilliant, and a fantastic experience that will stay with me for a long time.
Favorite moment in your life?
Oh, in my life? Oh, crikey! Now there's a question. Well, getting married was quite special. We did that at Edinburgh Castle, and it was amazing. So that was quite special. I've got, as I mentioned as well, I've got a couple of children too. So having them was pretty special. Although between me and you, they're just getting a bit too big for their boots and a bit too cheeky. So I might just scrap that one. But yeah, I suppose family. I'm a pretty family orientated kind of girl. So I suppose meeting my husband, getting married, and having a family, that all kind of peels into the one kind of special time of your life.
But your kids will just take it off you, the cheekiness and.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably absolutely right. So I can't complain, can I?
No. Do you like pints or gin?
I'm not a big fan of either, to be honest. I'm not a big beer drinker, so I think I'd probably struggle to drink a pint. And I think there's nothing more sophisticated than someone walking into a bar and saying, "Oh, can I have a gin and tonic?" But I just can't take to it. So I'm not a massive drinker, but wine would be my drink of choice out of all the alcoholic beverages on offer.
Still game or Scott Squad?
Still game, definitely.
Favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. I've got quite a lot of favorite movies actually, and from different genres as well. I love Shawshank Redemption. I don't know if you've seen that. It's quite a deep and kind of moving movie. But also, I really like really kind of not crass. They're not crass at all, but they're light entertainment. Things like Dirty Dancing and Footloose and Top Gun. That kind of takes me back to when I was kind of growing up and watching them with my pals. So I love those kind of movies. And this is really sad, and I maybe should admit this, but I really like James Bond movies. I love James Bond movies.
Favorite song?
Favorite song. Again, I don't have just one specific song. I like loads of different music, and again, from a whole mixed bag of genres as well. When I was growing up, my mum was really into the Carpenters. And I really love listening to the Carpenters, but I also really love listening to Britney Spears. So it's a mixed bag. I don't just have one favorite song, and I kind of chop and change as well. Depending on what kind of mood I'm in as well. Your favorite song 1 minute might be a Britney Spears song, and the next minute it might be an old classic. So I don't really have one favorite song. I love music though, and I love listening to all different types of music.
Favorite comedy?
Favorite comedy? Still Game would be up there actually. I think those guys are really, really clever and really, really sharp, and sometimes a bit too close to the bone, which I quite like. It's quite cheeky comedy. And in terms of kind of stand-up comedy, I really like Sarah Millican. Have you heard of her? She's kind of from the northeast of England, and again, she's kind of really close to the bone and quite kind of brash and out there. And that kind of tickles my fancy, I have to say. That kind of humour.
Favorite TV program?
Crikey, if I don't say Sportszone, I'm in big trouble, really, aren't I?
No.
Favorite TV program. I don't watch any soap operas. I hate soap operas. I don't have time for them in my life, I'm afraid. Again, I don't have a favorite one. And you can sit down and watch programs, whenever you like in this day and age, can't you? But what would be my favorite TV program? Go back, Question of Sport. Love Question of Sport. Love it.
Yeah. If you could sit down with 3 past or present football players, who would it be and why?
Oh, what a great question. Past or present footballers. Well, what about Pele, Maradona, and Lionel Messi? And this argument that everyone always has, who is the best? Right, so I'd sit them all down and I would quiz them and get them to decide who's the best. But obviously there would have to be some skill involved in that as well. So they would have to do as many keepy uppies as they could. They would have to try and hit a can with a ball or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think, Darren? Do you think that would settle the argument for once and for all?
Probably.
Do you think so? You can't argue, if God bless him, Maradona, who obviously passed away quite recently, and who, in my book, probably, in my opinion, probably was the best. What a character he was. But imagine him talking to Pele about why everyone should vote for him being the best. It'd be a brilliant conversation. You probably would just have to sit there and listen, maybe throw in the odd wee grenades, But Pele did this. But Messi, you've never won a World Cup, and Maradona did. So how can you argue that you're the best? Do you know what I mean? That'd be great. What a great question. Oh, shame that can't come true, isn't it?
Well, no.
2 out of the 3.
Obviously, favorite pundits you've worked with?
Oh, favorite pundits that I've worked with. Oh my goodness. When I first went to STV, we were really lucky. STV at that time had the rights for the Champions League for live games and for highlights as well. So that was amazing. So I was lucky enough that I was involved in that with Scotland Today, which was what the STV News programme was called. So I used to do a lot of travelling, and one of the pundits they used was Billy McNeil, who was either out at games with us or who was in the studio with Jim Delahunt, who was the presenter at the time. And he was absolutely lovely. Another, obviously, footballer who's no longer with us. It's just so sad. But he was great. He made you feel really at ease. There's a guy who's won the European Cup, and he's talking to me as if we're friends, and he was just absolutely out of this world and really encouraging as well. So he would certainly be up there. But just I'm really lucky enough with the pundits that I work with at BBC Scotland, there's a whole different mishmash of pundits, in terms of from different eras. I've mentioned Willie Miller, Pat Bonner, that there's Billy Dodds, there's Michael Stewart, there's Stephen Thompson. There's all sorts of different pundits who've got different experiences, and that all kind of rubs off on you as well. But they're all so easy to talk to and so easy to get along with and really engage with too, because they're doing a job they love as well. They're watching football and they're dissecting, they're analysing it and dissecting it and talking to you about it. So yeah, just really, really lucky on that front as well. That there's loads of brilliant pundits out there, and there's been really big moves as well, to get a lot more female pundits involved in football. The likes of Leanne Crichton and Shelley Kerr and Julie Fleeting. And I'm really delighted, that the BBC Scotland is at the kind of forefront of that, and Sky Sports as well have been doing it for the last few years. And it's brilliant to see. But yeah, I don't have a favourite pundit, and I it would be very unfair for me to pick a favourite pundit. They're all brilliant, really good.
Who's the daftest pundit out of the BBC Scotland?
That's an easy one. Stephen Thompson is a brilliant pundit, a brilliant presenter too, but he's the daftest. I mean, he will just make animal noises willy-nilly and just come up with really, really daft ideas and daft sayings, but this is all off camera, by the way, and obviously doesn't do it when he's actually on the television or on the radio. But he's pretty, not yet. That don't encourage that, because he would be up for that. He's probably the daftest, but he's also just in case he listens to this, which I'm sure he will. But he's also lovely and really, really good at his job as well. But yeah, definitely the daftest, definitely.
Yeah, Jonathan Sutherland said the same.
Did he say that too? Well, there you go. You got two people saying it, so that's it.
About the animal noises.
I know. Unbelievable. I mean, I sit there. I do a lot of work on a Saturday for the results programme, which David Curry presents, and Stephen Thompson's a regular guest on that. And when we're waiting for them to come to us, and when before we're even on air, we've got our headphones on and we can hear them all rehearsing and chatting away. And Stephen Thompson will be sitting there doing impersonations of chickens, dogs, any animal. And I'm just like, what? Can he not just shut up, please? He must drive David Curry mental. He must do.
What you should do is all the weird noises that he makes, you should collaborate them all. Put them on like Twitter or something.
I'm not sure he would be too impressed by that, but it might get him to stop. So that might not be a bad idea, Darren. You might be onto something there.
But obviously that's like all my questions. But I just want to thank you for taking your time out and chatting to me about football. What else can we do during this pandemic?
Football has been a godsend for a lot of people, hasn't it? And as I said to you earlier, Darren, I'm really fortunate that I can get to go and watch football matches. But if you can't do that, second best is to sit down, listen to it on the radio, watch it on the television, read about it in papers. And fortunately, we can still do that. And long may football continue.
Yeah, it is weird watching it.
Yeah.
On TV without fans.
Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird being there without fans as well. The first couple of times it was quite intriguing because you got to hear just how much they shout at each other. The players are constantly shouting, and of course they would be. Why wouldn't they be? But you don't hear that when the fans are in. You were always aware that the managers were shouting, although you get to hear a lot more of what they're saying. But yeah, I was quite intrigued when I first went because it was a new experience and you were getting to hear what they were saying, and that was quite interesting. But I'm over that now. I want the fans to come back because you miss it. You absolutely miss that atmosphere that the fans bring. Definitely.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of swearing involved as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of swearing involved, and I won't name the manager, but I was at a game at the weekend, and the sweary words that were used were something else, something else.
And obviously you'll hear challenges a lot louder.
Yeah, you do. I mean, and actually, that for me is the bit I don't like, because you can hear the ball, and whether it's hitting off their legs or whether it's a shin pad, sometimes that can make it sound a bit worse than it is. But yeah, you hear every crunch of every tackle, and you wince enough when you see a tackle, but when you hear it as well, what it's like when you hear a tackle. It's like, oh, it's like double the kind of wincing effort that you put into things, and yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that aspect of it, I have to say.
Can you hear the ref?
You can't really hear what the ref's saying. I wouldn't have said no, because he doesn't tend to. I mean, if he was shouting at someone, you might be able to, but no, I can't think that I've heard that the ref speaking to the players. No, you can hear the players shouting at each other. You can hear the managers, as you say. You can hear the kind of crunching tackles. But no, I haven't been aware of hearing the refs. That would be interesting, wouldn't it, if you could hear them?
I mean, when I was watching the Hibs Hearts semi-final, it just felt weird. They generally feel like training games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people, I mean, Celtic have made a big thing this season, haven't they, about how they've really missed the crowd, and that's why maybe they haven't performed as they have done in previous seasons. A lot of Rangers fans have said the opposite about Rangers, that the fans haven't been there, so the pressure hasn't been on the players. So it's really interesting, the kind of different takes that people have had on the fans. But for the cup final, it was interesting because there were no fans there on cup final day, semi-final day as well. So semi-finals for Hibs and Hearts. Semi-final day, you'd expect that Hampden to be a burst of colour and noise. And I was covering that. I was the trackside reporter that day, and both managers, were it was obvious that they were missing that element, and the fans were kind of really in their minds. But what a cracking game we got. Without the fans, that for me was quite incredible, that we got that level of game without the fans, being there to kind of gee their team on,
And it was tailored to penalties.
Yeah.
That tried to go, I think, top corner, and itself the crossbar, whereas Hearts got the penalty and scored.
Yeah, it was a tale of two penalties. You're right, but I mean, I thought I thoroughly enjoyed that semi-final. I thought both teams gave their all, and I thought, heart felt sorry for the losers as always, but the joy from the winners. I remember interviewing Craig Gordon after the game, and he was crying. He had tears in his eyes. It meant so much for him. The emotion. I know you don't want to hear this as a Hibs fan, but the emotion that was coming out of him, because what they'd achieved was great, and again, I was really honoured to be in that situation. But yeah, that was a brilliant cup semi-final. I really enjoyed that, and the final wasn't too bad either, actually.
No, that could have went either way.
Well, that was a tale of penalties too, wasn't it? I mean, obviously going all the way, that was incredible.
But what I'll do is I'll end it here, but carry on talking to you if that's okay.
Yeah, of course, no worries. Yeah.
But thank you once again.
My pleasure.
And if you're new, folks, please subscribe. Please give it a like. Please comment down below, and please turn on your notifications. Thank you.